A Japanese salaryman falls asleep and wakes up to find himself in the body of a 5-year-old noble boy named Wendelin von Benno Baumeister, during the wedding of his oldest brother, Kurt, and his wife, Emily. Despite their noble status, Wendelin soon discovers that the Baumeisters are poor and only own a small knighthood of farmland, which will be inherited by Kurt. The rest of Wendelin's 6 older brothers have either married into other families or secured work as government officials or soldiers, leaving him with nothing to inherit. While exploring his father's library, Wendelin comes across a book on magic and later realizes that he has the ability to use it. One day, while searching for firewood in the nearby enchanted forest for his family, Wendelin encounters a sorcerer named Alfred Rainford, who detects his magical potential. After saving him from a wild boar, Alfred vows to teach Wendelin how to properly use magic. Wendelin decides to keep his magic a secret after learning that it could place him ahead of Kurt in line to inherit the lordship, which would risk possible assassination at Kurt's hands. During their training, Alfred discovers that Wendelin possesses an extraordinarily high magical capacity. However, as time passes, Alfred begins to show unusual symptoms: cold skin, a lack of taste, and sudden bouts of pain. Wendelin's strange behavior during training eventually draws Kurt's suspicion, but Wendelin eases it by announcing his desire to become an adventurer instead of pursuing inheritance. Since the kingdom's Adventurers' Academy is expensive, Wendelin resolves to work and pay for his own tuition. To assist him with traveling, Alfred teaches him flight magic. When Wendelin's father hears rumors of a whispering dead, a sentient corpse doomed to eventually become a mindless zombie, Wendelin realizes it refers to Alfred. He confronts his teacher, who admits that he died during a failed expedition and returned as a whispering dead so he could pass on his knowledge to an apprentice. Having fulfilled that purpose, Alfred teaches Wendelin holy magic so he can be purified and pass peacefully into the afterlife. 7 years later, Wendelin leaves his family behind to begin his journey as an adventurer. At the Adventurers' Academy, Wendelin tries to make friends, but his lack of communication skills, combined with his overwhelming magical power and extraordinary feats, makes the other students too intimidated to approach him. Meanwhile, 3 students, Erwin, Louise, and Ina, bond over being the youngest children of lower-class families. Hoping to earn Wendelin's recognition and form a party with him, they attempt to hunt down a large pack of wolves but are quickly overwhelmed. Wendelin arrives just in time to rescue them. However, due to a misunderstanding, the trio believes Wendelin views them as a burden, when in truth, he actually wants to be friends with them. Later, their class attends a party hosted by Duke Bleikroder, who takes an interest in Wendelin because his father serves as one of Bleikroder's vassals. To the surprise of Erwin, Louise, and Ina, Wendelin directly asks them to join him. The group soon learns that Bleikroder arranged the meeting so they could be introduced to his court wizard Brantak Lingstad, Alfred's former teacher, who confirms his suspicion that Alfred had passed down his knowledge to Wendelin. Realizing that Wendelin is not so different from themselves, Erwin, Louise, and Ina agree to be his friends and form an adventuring party. As a final surprise, Wendelin is rewarded 1,000 gold coins and inherits Alfred's estate for returning both Alfred's belongings and the resources recovered from the failed expedition to Duke Bleikroder. Wendelin and his friends are invited to his brother Eric's wedding in the kingdom's capital. On the way, their airship is attacked by an undead bone dragon. Brantak Lingstad instructs Wendelin to purge the dragon with holy magic, after which they collect the valuable bones and its crystal heart. Upon arriving in the capital city of Stadberg, Brantak leaves Wendelin and his companions in the care of his merchant friend, Arturio Merkin. Soon after, soldiers escort Wendelin to meet the king, who rewards him for defeating the bone dragon with the prestigious twin dragon medal and grants him the noble rank of baronet, making Wendelin one of the nobles of the robe. This, however, worries Eric, since their father is only a knight, meaning Wendelin will be removed from the family tree to establish his own noble house. Debates quickly break out among officials over how much Wendelin should be paid for the dragon's bones and heart. Arturio explains the political struggle at play. Edmund von Hohenheim wants Wendelin under the church's influence. Lord Marshal Edgar hopes to recruit him for the military, and Finance Minister Ruckner wishes to save as much money as possible. In the end, Wendelin is awarded 150,000 gold. At Eric's wedding, Wendelin notices that his family is too poor to provide a proper gift, which embarrasses both them and their liege, Duke Bleichroder. To save face, Wendelin purchases the presents himself. Later, Arterio manages to procure konkuji, the key ingredient Wendelin had been seeking to make miso. Wendelin uses it to prepare dinner for his family and friends. Meanwhile, Egmund von Hohenheim informs his granddaughter, Elise Katharina von Hohenheim, that he has found her a suitable husband. Hohenheim introduces Wendelin to Elise and, taking advantage of Wendelin's naivete, tricks him into agreeing to a political marriage with her. Wendelin panics at the thought of marrying a woman he doesn't truly love, but Eric reassures him that among nobles it is common to meet one's betrothed only shortly before the wedding. Meanwhile, Wendelin finds himself constantly swarmed by unemployed adventurers every time he leaves his home. Curious about Elise, Wendelin sneaks into the Hohenheim estate to speak with her, and is relieved to discover that she is not opposed to marrying him. When Louise and Ina learn that Erwin has become Wendelin's retainer, they jokingly decide to outdo him by becoming Wendelin's mistresses once he marries Elise. Later, Wendelin is invited to dinner with Elise, where the butler suggests he provide her with an engagement ring. Wendelin takes her shopping, but, instead of choosing an extravagant piece, he buys a modest ring that better suits Elise's personality. To their surprise, the ring is crafted from a crystal capable of storing magic, making it especially useful for Elise's healing abilities. During their time together, Wendelin confides that he worries about living up to his reputation as a dragon slayer when he still feels unsure of himself. This honesty endears him to Elise, who begins to develop a quiet crush on him. Afterward, the butler reports to Hohenheim that Wendelin is an unusual noble, admitting he has no idea what the young man is truly thinking. In reality, Wendelin's main concern is something far simpler: how much he misses Japanese soy sauce. Elise visits Louise, Ina, and Erwin to learn more about what kind of man Wendelin truly is. Meanwhile, the king summons Wendelin and Brantak, requesting that they slay an ancient dragon named Gregorland, as the kingdom needs the dragon's territory converted into farmland. To assist them, he also assigns Klimt Christoph von Armstrong, his enthusiastic and muscular court wizard. Since Gregorland's death could stir up the nearby monsters, Erwin, Louise, and Ina recruit the unemployed adventurers to help guard the area, with Elise and the church clergy providing healing support. Wendelin and Armstrong ultimately defeat Gregorland, and Wendelin secures the dragon's valuable body. However, the moment Gregorland dies, the surrounding monsters launch an attack on the soldiers, forcing Wendelin and his companions to join the battle. Relieved that he is, at heart, a truly good man, she finally collapses from exhaustion after Wendelin safely returns. Wendelin stays by her side until she awakens, only to discover that Armstrong is actually her uncle. The following day, Elise innocently asks Wendelin if Louise and Ina are also his fiancées, since they all live under the same roof. To Wendelin's surprise, she admits she would not mind if he had concubines. Encouraged by Elise's support, both Louise and Ina declare their intent to become his concubines, and Wendelin nervously agrees. At the wedding of his brother Helmut, Wendelin learns that he is expected to participate in a martial arts tournament. However, as a noble, he is required to fight using a sword instead of relying on magic. Louise and Ina decide to enter the tournament as well, while Erwin is persuaded by Brantak to join. Around this time, Wendelin obtains Hohenheim's permission to formally add Elise to their adventuring party. Erwin initially dreams of becoming the tournament champion, until he discovers that the previous champion, Warren, commander of the Royal Knights, is competing again. Frustrated and bitter about lacking magical talent, Erwin snaps at Louise and Ina. The next day, however, he notices that Elise has also been training, despite her limited physical abilities. Realizing that everyone has weaknesses of their own, Erwin apologizes for his outburst. During the preliminary matches, Wendelin is pitted against Warren and is defeated instantly. Louise makes it as far as the semi-finals before being eliminated. Ina faces off against Rodrich, a stubborn and overly persistent spear user obsessed with being hired by Wendelin, but ultimately loses to him. Owen then finds himself matched against Warren and begins to worry that losing will cause Wendelin to remove him from the party. To ease his doubts, Louise shows him a thoughtful lunch that Wendelin prepared, proving that Wendelin values him for far more than just his combat ability. Though it is implied that Erwin ultimately loses to Warren, the commander takes a liking to him and agrees to train Erwin until he reaches the age of 15 and becomes a full-time adventurer. Meanwhile, Ina secures a spear trainer of her own, and Louise introduces Wendelin to her martial arts trainer, Armstrong, who also offers to train them until they turn 15. 3 years later, Kurt, Wendelin's eldest brother, receives a letter from Baron Ruckner, the brother of Lord Commissioner Ruckner, claiming that Wendelin has died. In reality, 5 days earlier, Wendelin had just turned 15 and officially registered their adventurer party under the name Dragon Busters. Soon after, the king assigned them to investigate ancient ruins. Brantak explains that the ruins were discovered within Gregorland's former territory, and many high-ranking adventurers who entered have since vanished. Upon exploring the ruins, Wendelin's group accidentally activates a magic circle that teleports them to the lowest floor. Forced to fight their way upward, they must battle through an army of golems to reach the surface. Meanwhile, 5 days later, Baron Ruckner begins spreading rumors of Wendelin's death. As part of his scheme to replace his brother as Lord Commissioner, he proposes that Kurt's sons should inherit Wendelin's new title of Baron. Still uncertain how much farther they must climb, Elise confides in Wendelin that she hopes they survive, admitting she would regret never having married him. Their journey grows more dangerous when they encounter a dragon golem armored with mithril scales. During the fight, Brantak exhausts his magic and collapses, but Elise transfers the spell Miracle's Light to Wendelin through a kiss, allowing him to defeat the dragon. Afterward, Brantak realizes the ruins were created by the ancient mage Count Ichelberg, renowned for his mastery in crafting magical items. The group also discovers a vast library and a hangar filled with priceless ancient airships. Finally, Erwin opens the hangar doors, revealing that they have reached the surface at last. For the treasures recovered from the ruins, the king rewards the Dragon Busters with 10 million gold. Wendelin decides to relocate their home to Breitberg in order to establish their adventuring careers more firmly, but Armstrong warns him of the rumors about his supposed death. Wendelin realizes their growing success has already attracted dangerous enemies. Behind the scenes, High Auditor Ruckner and his allies begin plotting Wendelin's assassination. To better manage his affairs, Wendelin hires Rodrich as his butler to oversee the estate in the capital. At the same time, a mysterious pink-haired girl named Wilma begins following him. Wendelin also meets Lucas Gotz Beckenbauer, the leader of the Magic Guild, and borrows an artifact capable of summoning any item. Later, Wendelin hosts a lavish party for his friends, family, and several influential nobles. Using the artifact, he surprises everyone by serving freshly summoned tuna sushi with soy sauce. During the celebration, Rodrich privately informs Wendelin about Ruckner's schemes, including his attempt to drag Kurt into the conspiracy. He reassures Wendelin that Ruckner will be summoned by the king for questioning, and then confides a personal truth: he is actually Ruckner's illegitimate son, but despises him for his cruelty. The party is suddenly interrupted when Wilma bursts in, drawn by the tuna feast. Lord Marshal Edgar reveals that Wilma is his adopted daughter and explains her unusual condition, hero syndrome, a rare affliction that constantly overpowers her muscles, resulting in an insatiable appetite. Brantak confirms the diagnosis, and Edgar offers Wendelin the option of taking Wilma on as a bodyguard, or even as a wife. Meanwhile, Duke Bleichroder requests Wendelin's help with a new monster hunting job. At the same time, Kurt receives the false news of Wendelin's death and gleefully celebrates the thought of inheriting his younger brother's fortune. His excitement is short-lived, however, as Wendelin and his friends suddenly teleport outside, revealing that Wendelin is very much alive. Brantak explains to Wendelin's father, Sir Arthur, that the deceased expedition army, of which Alfred Rainford was once a member, have returned as zombies. Since the zombies are on Baumeister land, Arthur is legally entitled to 30% of any profits gained from harvesting their materials. However, Kurt greedily demands 50% and argues that the zombies and their belongings should be left in the forest rather than given proper funerals. Wendelin begins to see the depth of Kurt's jealousy and animosity toward him, while realizing that the servants and villagers openly prefer Wendelin as heir to the Baumeister lordship. Together with his companions, Wendelin purifies the fallen soldiers, among them Duke Bleikroder's father, and even the lich grandfather of Marlene, the wife of Wendelin's brother Herman. Before passing on, the lich asks Wendelin if Marlene is happy. Wendelin reassures him that she lives a good life, after which the lich gratefully allows Elise to purify him. Wendelin also returns the armor of the villagers' deceased relatives so they can hold proper funerals. When Kurt demands the armor be melted down and reused, Wendelin instead provides new iron, allowing the villagers to keep the armor, an act that only further enrages Kurt. Surprisingly, Duke Bleikroder insists that Wendelin remain with his family for a while, though it becomes clear he is secretly plotting something. During the soldiers' funerals, Wendelin shows respect by attending, while Kurt insults the villagers by refusing to appear. In private, Klaus, the village chief, asks Wendelin to replace Kurt as heir. Brantak supports this, pointing out that by urging Wendelin to stay with his family, Duke Bleikroder has subtly signaled that the entire royal court, including the king himself, desires Wendelin to succeed Kurt as head of the Baumeister house. Brantak explains that the king wishes to develop the surrounding lands but is unable to do so under the control of low-ranking lords such as Sir Arthur. To resolve this, the royal court has been secretly fueling Kurt's jealousy toward Wendelin, waiting for him to snap so that he can be removed as heir. Wendelin, however, refuses to participate in this scheme, knowing it would also mean disinheriting his nephews. Klaus warns Brantak to be cautious of Amelie, Kurt's wife, who will do anything to protect her sons. Wendelin eventually learns that once he is installed as lord, Kurt will be assassinated to prevent future trouble. Hoping to avoid bloodshed, Wendelin offers Kurt a compromise that would allow him to remain lord while granting Wendelin permission to develop the land. But blinded by jealousy, Kurt rejects the proposal outright. With no other choice, Wendelin resolves to accept the lordship, but vows to resist the royal court's designs by ensuring no one dies in the process. To gain the villagers' trust, Wendelin opens a bazaar to provide them with better resources. He also undermines Kurt's allies by bribing the shop owners with advanced training in their crafts, improving their businesses and breaking their reliance on Kurt. To further secure his family's safety, Wendelin purchases a house in the capital for Amelie and his nephews, hoping to have Kurt peacefully banished to a monastery by Egmund von Hohenheim so the court will have no reason to assassinate him. But with his allies gone and his influence shattered, Kurt finally descends into madness and begins plotting Wendelin's murder. At this vulnerable moment, one of High Auditor Ruckner's men arms Kurt with a dangerous magical weapon, the dragon's flute. Armed with the magical dragon's flute, an artifact said to summon a horde of dragons, Kurt lures Wendelin and his companions to an empty clearing in the undeveloped forest. After mocking Wendelin and Brantak's futile attempts to dissuade him, Kurt plays the flute, intending to kill the party and punish the entire region, including his own family, for what he sees as betrayal. However, it quickly becomes clear that the flute does not summon dragons. Instead, it channels all the malice of the land into Kurt, transforming him into a massive undead monster. Though horrified at the thought of killing his own brother, Wendelin reluctantly joins Elise in purifying him. Once Kurt's body is destroyed, the last fragment of his malice breaks free, seeking vengeance on the nobles who engineered his downfall. It kills them and their families, including High Auditor Ruckner. With the kingdom's troubles resolved, the king burdens Wendelin with developing the reclaimed lands and offers him a reward. Frustrated with nobles who constantly exploit him without consequence, Wendelin seizes the opportunity to turn the tables, demanding 2 of the 12 noble titles vacated by the deaths caused by Kurt's malice. The court erupts into arguments over who has the right to bestow titles, but the king settles the matter by granting Wendelin the privilege to choose the recipients himself, even elevating him directly to the rank of Count, the 5th rank of the kingdom, skipping over Viscount entirely. Returning home, Wendelin assures Emily that when her sons come of age, he will bestow the 2 titles upon them if they wish to claim them. Emily, in turn, tells Wendelin that her children will eventually understand Kurt's downfall was the result of his own choices, not Wendelin's actions. With peace restored, development of the southern lands finally begins. Wendelin finds himself overworked by his companions, yet despite the burdens, he still enjoys the new life he has built with them. And that's where this video comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.